Intel Corporation is an American multinational technology company headquartered in Santa Clara, California. Intel is one of the world's largest and highest valued semiconductor chip makers, based on revenue. It is the inventor of the x86 series of microprocessors, the processors found in most personal computers. Intel supplies processors for computer companies such as Apple, Samsung, HP and Dell. Intel Corporation was founded on July 18, 1968. Intel also makes motherboard chipsets, network interface controllers and integrated circuits, flash memory, graphics chips, embedded processors and other devices related to communications and computing. Founded by semiconductor pioneers Robert Noyce and Gordon Moore and widely associated with the executive leadership and vision of Andrew Grove, Intel combines advanced chip design capability with a leading-edge manufacturing capability. Though Intel was originally known primarily to engineers and technologists, its Intel Inside advertising campaign of the 1990s made it a household name, along with its Pentium processors. Intel was an early developer of SRAM and DRAM memory chips, and this represented the majority of its business until 1981. Although Intel created the world's first commercial microprocessor chip in 1971, it was not until the success of the personal computer that this became its primary business. During the 1990s, Intel invested heavily in new microprocessor designs, fostering the rapid growth of the computer industry. During this period, Intel became the dominant supplier of microprocessors for PCs, and was known for aggressive and sometimes illegal tactics in defense of its market position, particularly against advanced micro devices, as well as a struggle with Microsoft for control over the direction of the PC industry. The 2013 rankings of the world's 100 most valuable brands published by Millward Brown Optimo showed the company's brand value at number 61. Intel U has also begun research into electrical transmission and generation. Intel U has recently introduced a 3D transistor that improves performance and energy efficiency. Intel U has begun mass-producing this 3D transistor, named the Tri-Gate transistor, with their 22 nanometers process, which is currently used in their third-generation core processors initially released on April 29, 2012. In 2011, SpectraWatt Inc., a solar cell spin-off of Intel, filed for bankruptcy under Chapter 11. In June 2013, Intel unveiled its fourth generation of Intel Core processors in an event named Computex in Taipei. The open-source technology center at Intel U hosts PowerTop and LatencyTop, and supports other open-source projects such as Wayland, Intel Array Building Blocks, Threading Building Blocks, and Zen. Intel is a portmanteau of the words integrated and electronics. The fact that Intel is the term for intelligence information also made the name appropriate. Corporate history. Origins. Intel was founded in Mountain View, California in 1968 by Gordon E. Moore, a chemist, and Robert Noyce, a physicist and co-inventor of the integrated circuit. Arthur Rock helped them find investors, while Max Palevsky was on the board from an early stage. Moore and Noyce had left Fairchild Semiconductor to found Intel. Rock was not an employee, but he was an investor and was chairman of the board. The total initial investment in Intel was $2.5 million convertible debentures and $10,000 from Rock. Just 2 years later, Intel completed their initial public offering, raising $6.8 million. Intel's third employee was Andy Grove, a chemical engineer, who later ran the company through much of the 1980s and the high-growth 1990s. In deciding on a name, Moore and Noyce quickly rejected Moore-Noyce, homophone for more noise, an ill-suited name for an electronics company, since noise in electronics is usually very undesirable and typically associated with bad interference. Instead, they used the name Nanometer Electronics before renaming their company Integrated Electronics, or Intel for short. Since Intel was already trademarked by the hotel chain Intelco, they had to buy the rights for the name. Early history. At its founding, Intel was distinguished by its ability to make semiconductors. Its first product, in 1969, was the 3101 Schottky TTL bipolar 64-bit static random access memory, which was nearly twice as fast as earlier Schottky diode implementations by Fairchild and the Electrotechnical Laboratory in Tsukuba, Japan. In the same year, Intel also produced the 3301 Schottky bipolar 1024-bit read-only memory and the first commercial metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistor silicon gate SRAM chip, the 256-bit 1101. Intel's business grew during the 1970s as it expanded and improved its manufacturing processes and produced a wider range of products, still dominated by various memory devices. While Intel created the first commercially available microprocessor in 1971 and one of the first microcomputers in 1972, by the early 1980s its business was dominated by dynamic random access memory chips. However, increased competition from Japanese semiconductor manufacturers had, by 1983, dramatically reduced the profitability of this market. The growing success of the IBM personal computer, based on an Intel microprocessor, was among factors that convinced Gordon Moore to shift the company's focus to microprocessors, and to change fundamental aspects of that business model. Moore's decision to sole source Intel's 386 chip played into the company's continuing success. By the end of the 1980s, buoyed by its fortuitous position as microprocessor supplier to IBM and IBM's competitors within the rapidly growing personal computer market, Intel embarked on a 10-year period of unprecedented growth as the primary hardware supplier to the PC industry. Part of the winning Wintel combination, Moore handed over to Andy Grove in 1987. By launching its Intel Inside marketing campaign in 1991, Intel was able to associate brand loyalty with consumer selection, so that by the end of the 1990s, its line of Pentium processors had become a household name. Slowing demand and challenges to dominance after 2000, growth in demand for high-end microprocessors slowed. Competitors, notably AMD, garnered significant market share, initially in low-end and mid-range processors but ultimately across the product range, and Intel's dominant position in its core market was greatly reduced. In the early 2000s, then CEO Craig Barrett attempted to diversify the company's business beyond semiconductors, but few of these activities were ultimately successful. Intel had also for a number of years been embroiled in litigation. U.S. law did not initially recognize intellectual property rights related to microprocessor topology until the Semiconductor Chip Protection Act of 1984, a law sought by Intel and the Semiconductor Industry Association. During the late 1980s and 1990s, Intel also sued companies that tried to develop competitor chips to the 80386 CPU. The lawsuits were noted to significantly burden the competition with legal bills, even if Intel lost the suits. Antitrust allegations had been simmering since the early 1990s and had been the cause of one lawsuit against Intel in 1991. In 2004 and 2005, AMD brought further claims against Intel related to unfair competition. In 2005, CEO Paul Otellini reorganized the company to refocus its core processor and chipset business on platforms. Regaining of momentum in 2007, Intel unveiled its Core microarchitecture to widespread critical acclaim. The product range was perceived as an exceptional leap in processor performance that it regained much of its leadership of the field. In 2008, Intel had another tick when it introduced the Penryn microarchitecture, which was 45 nanometers Later that year, Intel released a processor with the Nehalem architecture. Nehalem had positive reviews. Sale of X-Scale processor business. On June 27, 2006, the sale of Intel's X-Scale assets was announced. Intel agreed to sell the X-Scale processor business to Marvell Technology Group for an estimated $600 million and the assumption of unspecified liabilities. The move was intended to permit Intel to focus its resources on its core x86 and server businesses, and the acquisition completed on November 9, 2006. Acquisitions. On August 19, 2010, Intel announced that it planned to purchase McAfee, a manufacturer of computer security technology. The purchase price was $7.68 billion, and the companies said that if the deal were approved, new products would be released early in 2011. On January 26, 2011, the European Union approved the acquisition, after Intel agreed to provide rival security firms with all necessary information that would allow their products to use Intel's chips and personal computers. After the acquisition, Intel had about 90,000 employees, including about 12,000 software engineers. On August 30, 2010, Intel and Infineon Technologies announced that Intel would acquire Infineon's wireless solutions business. Intel planned to use Infineon's technology in laptops, smartphones, netbooks, tablets, and embedded computers in consumer products, eventually integrating its wireless modem into Intel's silicon chips. In March 2011, Intel bought most of the assets of Cairo-based Syssoft. In July 2011, Intel announced that it had agreed to acquire Fulcrum Microsystems Inc., a company specializing in network switches. The company was previously included on the E-Times list of 60 emerging startups. On October 1, 2011, Intel reached a deal to acquire Telmap, an Israeli-based navigation software company. The purchase price was not disclosed, but Israeli media reported values around $300 million to $350 million. In July 2012, Intel Corporation agreed to buy 10% shares of ASML Holding NV for $2.1 billion and another $1 billion for 5% shares that need shareholder approval to fund relevant research and development efforts. As part of a €3.3 billion deal to accelerate the development of 450mm wafer technology and extreme ultraviolet lithography by as much as 2 years. In July 2013, Intel confirmed the acquisition of OMEC Interactive, an Israeli company that makes technology for gesture-based interfaces, without disclosing the monetary value of the deal. An official statement from Intel read: "The acquisition of OMEC Interactive will help increase Intel's capabilities in the delivery of more immersive perceptual computing experiences." One report estimated the value of the acquisition between $30 million and $50 million. The acquisition of a Spanish natural language recognition startup named Indesys was announced on September 13, 2013. The terms of the deal were not disclosed, but an email from an Intel representative stated, "Intel U has acquired Indesys, a privately held company based in Seville, Spain. The majority of Indesys employees joined Intel. We signed the agreement to acquire the company on May 31 and the deal has been completed." Indesys explains that its artificial intelligence technology is a human image, which converses fluently and with common sense in multiple languages and also works in different platforms. In December 2014, Intel bought PasswordBox. In January 2015, Intel purchased a 30% stake in Vuzix, a smart glasses manufacturer. The deal was worth $24.8 million. In February 2015, Intel announced its agreement to purchase German network chip maker Lantic, to aid in its expansion of its range of chips in devices with Internet connection capability. In June 2015, Intel announced its agreement to purchase FPGA design company Altera for $16.7 billion, in its largest acquisition to date. The acquisition completed in December 2015. Acquisition table. Expansions. In 2008, Intel spun off key assets of a solar startup business effort to form an independent company, SpectraWatt Inc. In 2011, SpectraWatt filed for bankruptcy. In February 2011, Intel began to build a new microprocessor manufacturing facility in Chandler, Arizona, completed in 2013 at a cost of $5 billion. The building was never used. The company produces 3/4 of their products in the United States, although 3/4 of their revenue comes from overseas. In April 2011, Intel began a pilot project with ZTE Corporation to produce smartphones using the Intel Atom processor for China's domestic market. In December 2011, Intel announced that it reorganized several of its business units into a new mobile and communications group be responsible for the company's smartphone, tablet, and wireless efforts, opening up the foundries, finding itself with excess fab capacity after the failure of the Ultrabook to gain market traction and with PC sales declining. In 2013, Intel reached a foundry agreement to produce chips for Altera using 14nm process. General Manager of Intel's Custom Foundry Division Sunit Ricky indicated that Intel would pursue further such deals in the future. This was after poor sales of Windows 8 hardware caused a major retrenchment for most of the major semiconductor manufacturers, except for Qualcomm, which continued to see healthy purchases from its largest customer, Apple. As of July 2013, 5 companies were using Intel's fabs via the Intel Custom Foundry Division: Achronix, Tabula, Netronome, Microsemi, and Altera. Most are field programmable gate array makers, but Netronome designs network processors. Only Achronix began shipping chips made by Intel using the 22nm Tri-Gate process. Several other customers also exist but were not announced at the time. The Alliance for Affordable Internet was launched in October 2013, and Intel is part of the coalition of public and private organizations that also includes Facebook, Google, and Microsoft. Led by Sir Tim Berners-Lee, the A4AI seeks to make Internet access more affordable so that access is broadened in the developing world, where only 31% of people are online. Google will help to decrease Internet access prices so that they fall below the UN Broadband Commission's worldwide target of 5% of monthly income.